computer. Hello, everyone. Today, Dr. Dana Williams and I, Shanice Williams, we are going to discuss with you the ACAP resources and strategies to improve student achievement. I hope everyone had a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And we're just going to start the year off fresh with these resources and strategies, and hopefully they will help improve your day-to-day instruction. So the learning outcomes for today, we want to ensure that we demonstrate how to use the ACAP resources to improve instruction. We want to also ensure that we're providing an overview of ACAP instructional supports. We want to model how to collaboratively develop high quality lesson plans and create common assessments using USA Test Prep. So we're going to discuss several ACAP resources and instructional strategies, but we want to also provide you with a teacher checklist to kind of help you along the way once you go back to try to implement this into your classroom. So we've created a checklist. Actually, the State Department created a checklist, and we want to make sure we disseminate that information to you. So the first thing here, we have the ACAP resources from the State Department that looks like a one-pager. And it has your teacher checklist documents, your presentation, and I'll click on that. Everything is hyperlinked into this presentation, and everyone will receive this presentation later this afternoon as well. So once you click on the hyperlink, it takes you to this page. It has an actual step-by-step presentation of the State Department's expectations, the DRC websites, the Insight portal. It has your number of test items and test times per content area per grade level, as well as your item specs, which Dr. Dana Williams and I will discuss this morning as well. And it has your different scoring rubrics and proficiency scales. So I'm not going to click on each of the hyperlinks, but I just wanted you to know that this is in the presentation and it will be shared with you in the Google Drive as well. Sorry, I clicked off of that. Okay, so here, this is the instructional supports per grade level, as well as the PLDs for the grade levels and content areas. So if you're second, third, fourth, or fifth grade, it's in here for ELA and math for second, third, and fifth grade. But of course, for fourth grade, you have science, that is the accountability area for ACAP. So once you click on that, it takes you to your item specifications for ELA math and science. It also takes you to the blueprints and the PLDs per content area. And we're going to get into that in this presentation as well.
Okay, so moving on, the ACAP proficiency scales are added to this presentation and they're added by subject. So you should begin referencing the proficiency scales as you provide instruction during the day. The proficiency scales will let you know if the student is meeting the standard or how far away from meeting the standard the student is, and they have them for each content area. So if you will, click on the ELA K5 proficiency scales and you will see we have organized them in a nice little folder for you to access, but any grade level is available to you. So for third grade, you click on it and it shows you the proficiency scales for each of the standards that are assessed on ACAP. All standards do not have proficiency scales because all standards are not tested on the ACAP. So as you can see, the proficiency scale for third grade, and this particular one is a language standard, it tells you if the student is approaching, progressing, or if the student is proficient, or if the student is advanced. So you will be able to adequately assess how well that student is meeting the standard for that particular language standard. And they also have them for reading and writing as well. So these proficiency scales are a huge help to you to let you know if the student is mastering or meeting the standard, or if the student is exceeding that standard. We also have them for math and science. They are K-12, so it would be beneficial if you use this information while you are planning for your instruction, planning for your assessments, so you will be able to align assessments and instructional activities to help the students meet these standards according to the proficiency scales. Along with what was presented previously, we have the ACAP teacher checklist items. You can go through this, and again, all of these links are hot links, and they will take you directly to these particular sites. So we have the ACAP online tools hot link, and once you click on that, that training tool takes you there, and you can take sample tests. They're not graded, they're not given a score, but at least it's exposing the students and you to what to expect on the assessment. It shows you the rigor. The login information is provided for you. All you have to do is allow your students to practice. You get in there and you see how you need to increase your rigor to help students meet the proficiency rate on the assessment. Along another item on the checklist is that you have shown the online testing video tutorials to your students. That's the third bullet that you see listed. Have you shown them this? If not, this is a good time to begin showing them these tutorials, exposing them to the resources that ACAP has available for you to help prepare your students for the assessment. And the last bullet, have I reviewed the sample test item presentation with my students? Again, have you? If not, this is a good time to present this information to your students so they are better prepared for the assessment. Moving forward, we're talking about the MPS lesson plan changes. What you see here is the previous lesson plan template for MPS. It was very simple. It was straight to the point. You had your standard, your formative assessment, and your instructional strategies, your learning targets. However, based on the information, the instructional ACAP supports that we have modified the lesson plan template for your use. What you have now is something that looks a little bit more like this. It provides a little more detail. You go back, Shanice. It provides a little more detail. You have, again, your standards are always going to be identified. Find that overarching standard, and you're going to pull it from the ACAP instructional supports. Your daily learning target will come from the instructional supports. Your formative assessment. Your formative assessment needs to be built according to the standard, not according to your level of instruction, which is why that is in there before the activities. Your essential question will come from the instructional supports. Your BDAs will come from the instructional supports. And then we will show you more in depth about the intervention. And technology, as always, technology is how the students use technology, not how you use it. You can click, Shanice. So to begin, this is a sample of, this is what we have changed. We've moved the technology standard to the top because we want to know what you plan on doing for the students. You have your before, during, and after reading there. You have tier 1 small group instruction presented. And this area is how will you differentiate tier 1 small group instruction. Remember, you have 2 different types of small group instruction. You have tier 1 small group instruction. And as you see, when you move down the page, you have tier 2 small group instruction. Keep that in mind. They are 2 different things. Tier 2 small group instruction is related to multi-tiered system of support. This is where you identify those deficit skills that are on the grade level deficit skills, but you are providing intervention with that. The tier 3 are those below grade level skills that you will provide intervention for. We provided a quick checklist, something simple for you to fill out, no long drawn out lesson plans, just quick jotted notes on each lesson plan template that you have to address your tier 2 and tier 3 students. Moving on to the ELA Instructional Supports. You heard me talk about pulling this information to complete the lesson plan from the instructional supports. And this is what they look like. And again, these items are hyperlinked. So click on any of them and it will take you directly to the Google folder that contains the PDFs of each of these instructional supports. As we move forward in the presentation, I will show you how to align what's in the instructional supports to the new lesson plan template. So in the instructional supports, you will see these headings. The key academic terms are listed for you. That's the academic language that these, or the vocabulary rather, that these students should be learning. They need to know this because this is what they're going to see on the assessment. The instructional supports provide additional resources for you to use, and they're all hot linked, so you can access them quickly. You don't have to do long drawn out internet searches. It's available at just the click of a button. The instructional supports also provide guiding questions and various instructional activities. These instructional activities can be broken up throughout the week. You don't have to do all of it in one day. It's too much to do in one day. So it is suggested that you break it up throughout the week. So for example, we pulled the instructional support related to RL 3.1. As you can see, RL 3.1 has the outcome listed. This is what it looks like. Click on machine. The instructional outcomes are listed. Your guided questions and instructional activities are listed. The next page of the instructional support, it provides you with an anchor chart. This is an anchor chart you can recreate, or you can copy, cut, and paste, create a handout for your students to complete, engage your whole class activity in this. Whatever it is that you need, it's in here for you to streamline your instruction. Also, as you scroll through here, if you look at section number 2, it provides you with your before, during, and after activities. Look at the first red underline. It says prior to reading the text. It goes into what you need to do. That's your before. While reading the text, model how to ask questions. That's your during. After reading the text, model how to ask questions. So it provides you before, during, and after activities. Your role is simply to find the instructional strategies that will best engage students in the learning process using these ACAP instructional supports. Keep going, Shanice. So when you get to the next page, as you can see, there are a lot of activities in here. Again, you can break it up throughout the week. You have your small group activity for tier 1. Click on it, Shanice. Small group activity for tier 1. And it says, have students read a longer literary text independently. And it provides you with a graphic organizer that you can provide for those students. This allows you to differentiate your instruction. So for your red group, you can probably fill in the questions and help them find the answers. For your overachievers, you can probably have them create questions for the class and anticipate the answers for the next whole group discussion. So you differentiate the instruction for your students, and the point is that these instructional supports provide you with the activities. You just figure out how to implement them in your classroom, and you figure out what instructional strategies you are going to use to engage those students. And again, you can break it up. Here's some activities you can say for the next day. Day 2 activities. You go through this, you pull out your before, during, and after. You see here, there's a race chart, hyperlink there. If you look at the bottom of the page, and you will be able to gain access to everything that the people who created this document suggest is implemented in the classroom to help prepare your students for the assessment. So this is just a sample of what a completed lesson plan template looks like. Yes, it's more than one page, because if you're planning, you have to plan appropriately. And we suggest you use this template for at least 1 week's worth of planning, but refer to your principal to determine how your principal wants you to create your lesson plans. Do they want day-by-day lesson plans, or do they want you to put 1 week's worth of lesson plans in this one document? So if you look, we have created our, on the first page, the formative assessments. We created USA test prep assessments. We put the code in here. We identified that there will be some visual presentation that's going to be used as a grade, where students will write a short essay. Graphic organizers will be used. So these are all the forms of assessment, whether formative or summative, that we're going to implement. We have the key academic terms. We pulled those directly from the instructional supports. The strategies, we went into a document, we found some strategies. We're going to do think, pair, share, and the race strategy. And the learning targets are listed. Look on page 2 in the middle of the screen. We put the guiding questions in there. Again, pull them directly from the instructional support. We identified that students are going to use Jamboards to complete the graphic organizers. Remember, we said on page 1, graphic organizers are going to be one of the formative assessments we use. And to do that, we're incorporating technology by using Jamboards. Whole group instructional activities. There wasn't enough space on the page for me to go through it all with you, but we decided to summarize it and say to introduce the standard, we're going to use a YouTube video. We're going to use this anchor chart that was listed in the instructional support. We identified the before, during, and after activities. You will expound on this more, but for the sake of an example, we provided it for you. Click on that, Shanice. And as you continue to go through, you will get to the end where you have to identify your tier 2 supplemental intervention and your tier 3 supplemental intervention. And this is what it looks like. You'll identify your deficit skills. You'll identify what resources used. How is the support provided? Is it push in, pull out? Who's providing the support? What does your STAR data tell you? In this particular case, there's 32% of students in this particular class that are on intervention, and it's related to RL 3.1. So therefore, you know you need to target this. Tier 2, you have 41% of your students in urgent intervention relating to RF 3.220A. So you're going to begin using your data to help guide your instruction, and it will be listed on your lesson plan template. Again, this is just a closer look at what we just previously discussed. You keep clicking. You're going to plan for each of your group's deficits. So even if you have the red group, the yellow group, the green group, the tadpoles, the frogs, the butterflies, whoever it is, you need to plan for each of your groups. You need to identify the skill, the resource that is going to be used to target this intervention. Who's providing the support? Is it a teacher tutor, a classroom aide? You're pulling your resource teacher from special ed? Who's providing the support, or are you doing it? This will all be identified on your lesson plan template. Keep going till you get to, and make sure you use your STAR data to plan for your progress monitoring. Do not forget, progress monitoring schedule is the schedule is listed here. Your urgent intervention students should be progress monitored every 2 weeks. Your intervention students should be progress monitored every 3 weeks. And your at or above students should be progress monitored once per month. So pay close attention to your data and plan for your progress monitoring. And as I told you previously, we have decided to do the backward design model. The backward design model identifies the standard first. That is always going to take place. You have to identify your standard first. But instead of creating activities to support the standard, we're going to create the assessment that supports the standard. And that's where the various platforms, click on it, Shanice, that we have purchased from the district level come into play. So you identify your standard first. You're going to determine the acceptable evidence of learning. And that's going to come from either USA Test Prep, STAR, or Performance Matters. You or your grade level will create standards-based assessments. And then from there, you will create learning activities to support students mastering the standard. We no longer want teachers to create activities that don't include the rigor or explore the depth and breadth of the standard. This is why our students aren't mastering these standards, because the activities and the assessments don't align to what is on the summative assessment. So if you use these instructional supports and the performance level descriptors that we are providing for you, and you align your instruction to these assessments, we should see a better outcome when it comes time to complete this assessment.
Okay, so speaking of assessments, and as Dr. Dana Williams stated about the lesson plans, the new template, it rolls right into our next discussion of creating common assessments. So we want to ensure that when you begin to look at your common assessments and creating those first, you want to make sure you have the item specifications for ACAP in front of you when you're doing that. And so the ACAP type questions or item type questions are multiple choice, multi-select, evidence-based selected response, and then technology enhanced, which looks like drag and drop, drop-down list, hot text, and matching. And so make sure that, and this is hyperlinked in here again, but make sure that when you begin creating them, that you start with the item specifications. And so I want to take you through, and I know many of you already know how to create assessments in USA Test Prep. If you're science, you use your instructional guide. I have created those assessments per standard for you. However, we want to build a pool of assessments per standard for each content. So that looks like not just science, but ELA and for math as well. And I think once we build this, then as Dana said, it will drive the instruction. It will be performance based. It will be standards based. And then that will actually help us with our ACAP data and proficiency as well. So the first thing that you have to do, and this is step by step, is sign into USA Test Prep. So as a teacher, you're gonna, if you've never signed into USA Test Prep before, you have to sign in, you have to create you a class, you have to add your students, which they're in Clever in USA Test Prep. And then once you create a class, add your students, then you can begin using the resources. You have classroom resources at the top. And if you have never logged into USA Test Prep before, the classroom resources are awesome. It has videos, it has games for students, it has bell ringers, it also has writing prompts. And that's just the classroom resources. But in addition to that, with the assessment, once you log in, if you've already created your class, added your students, then the second thing is you want to select assessments. So you have classes, messages, assessments right here. You want to select assessments. You want to select in blue, create new assessment. And then the fourth step you want to do is you want to, right here on the right, and I used a teacher at Morning View, so I'm actually logged in as a teacher. The fourth step, you want to enter your information, select grade and subject, and set each indicator as below. So everyone who creates an assessment as a teacher, You want to make sure you put your name, your subject, and your standard. Because again, we're creating common standards-based assessments. Your grade level, and so once you click, not your grade, excuse me, your test, once you click the drop-down box, if you're third grade, it's going to say, do you want science, ELA, or math? You're going to select the subject. Share assessment, no. You want to view questions only. Allow students to view in Spanish, no. Enable text to speech, no. Display questions in random order, no. And then number of questions, number of answers per question, 4. So this is what you want to start with. When we create the assessments in USA Test Prep on the district level, then only we can go in and look at that data. So if you create them as a teacher, you're able to have access to that data immediately and then turn around and either reteach, retest, or review that standard if it was not mastered within your classroom. So the 5th step is, once you put in your information, when you create the assessment, you want the next screen, and it's 7 steps that are on here, and you're like, oh, 7 steps is really not that bad. Once you get the hang of it, you'll go straight through. So on the 5th step, you want to click I choose all of the questions, because that gives you an option to choose the questions per standard. If you choose the USA Test Prep chosen questions, it's going to build it for you. And you don't want to do that if you're creating standards-based assessments, because again, we're only looking at one standard to test the students on, not multiple. So you're going to select the purple, I choose all questions. Right here on the right, the 6th step, that you want to do is you want to choose the domain. And this is a science test that we're building. It would be the same thing if you were doing ELA or math. You're going to choose the domain, or you're going to choose the standard from the drop-down box. And so once you choose that, you'll press continue. And then the 7th step is you're going to check the questions desired, then click continue. So after I've chosen the domain, if you're science, this is 3.1, or it may say RL 3.1, or whatever you're working on. And so you choose the standard, and you see right here in the pink or red, it says MA for multiple correct answers, essay, short answer version, or QU, questions used on previous assessments. So that lets you know that if I give a assessment on 3.1 and the students don't master it, and then I go in and create another one on 3.1, if you've used that previous question, it'll tell you. So you select, and I say no more per standard, depending on the grade, no more than 10 questions per standard, because you don't need a lot of questions to determine mastery. So you select the questions, and it tells you right here the DOK levels. Is it 3, 2, 1? I try to stay away from DOK 1 questioning. That's strictly recall. So you want to choose majority DOK 2 and some DOK 3 questions. And see here, you can see here that this question that says essay, that's a short answer question. So it tells you the question type. The 8th step would be teachers then can select the blue tab if you want to create author free response questions, or they can select the purple tab. So here where it has favorites, it says favorite questions are used to author USA Test Prep questions you have previously flagged while creating an assessment. So favorite questions is the students will be able to type in their answers. So let's just say if I select purple, you won't have any of those favorite type questions. Okay, so the 9th step would be, do you want performance task questions? Yes, yes, and yes. I'm gonna tell you why. Because on the ACAP, those type questions are technology enhanced items. So here it says performance task or technology enhanced items. You want to click yes in blue. I want to add those. It is going to have your classifying, highlighting, labeling, matching, order. And if you see right here, step 10, it says select the domain and standards, then select the item type. So this again, science standard 3.5, I've selected the domain, I've selected the standard, and here I may say I want to select labeling life of a cycle frog, and this is the type right here, label, timeline, classify, and so on. It tells you the point value for that question and gives you as the teacher feedback. And then it is in order of whatever. And because what happens is if this is the first time, if taking the ACAP is the first time that the students see these technology enhanced questions, they typically don't do well. If they're not accustomed to drag and drop using technology, if they're not accustomed to classifying, labeling, drop down boxes, selecting more than 2 answer choices, and that really tripped a lot of students up, is that it said select 3 choices or select all the correct answers. But that has to be practiced throughout the year in these common assessments. So that's what we're trying to move towards, is ensuring that we're creating standards-based common assessments to help assist mastering the standard, as well as item types that they will see on the ACAP. So the 11th step is you're going to select the blue tab for 2-part questions. So 2-part questions, this is with a single passage, a prompt, or a problem situation, where they're continuing adding these in tests and standards where they can appear on state assessments. So you want to click, you want to click the blue tab. And then step 12, select the domain, and you're just going to repeat, because step 4 has performance tasks. We're on 2-part free response. You're going to do the same thing. You're going to select the domain, the standard, the item type, and then you're going to click next. So step 13, you're going to follow steps 11 and 12. You're going to select blue or purple and move on. So here, where it has free response, this is where they have open-ended questions. So this is in science and ELA. So if you click yes, I want a free response, then the students have to type short answers. The only thing is, it says they are not auto graded. So you as the teacher will need to manually grade these items upon completion. So if you have a class of 25, 30 students, then you may want to practice with them. If you put 1 on each standards-based test, at least they're seeing 1 free response question per week, and they're getting accustomed to typing in those questions and those answers, and they're getting accustomed to the free response. So it's not new to them when they take the ACAP. And so you want to select free response, and you can select 1 question for free response, 2 questions for performance task, 1 question for 2-part items. 2-part items look like multi-select. So just getting them accustomed to taking those, having those type questions. Okay, and lastly, on the assessments, you want to ensure that you save the assessment. You want to see what it looks like from the student view. And if you want to preview items, you can preview items and save the assessment. Once you save the assessment, it's going to give you a test code. And that's what the students go in through Clever to USA Test Prep. And then once they log into USA Test Prep, you type in the test code, and it takes them straight to the assessment that you created. So science lesson planning, which won't be much different than what Dr. Dana Williams explained to you for ELA. But for science, this particular lesson plan is for standard 4 PS1, and we have, again, overarching standard, and I put on here instructional days 5 to 7 days. And I'll tell you why, because we want to incorporate, if you're self-contained, you have to teach all content areas, but we want to incorporate the literacy in science and not separate and have science being taught 2 to 3 days a week. Science should be taught every single day within your reading time. You can have science passages, but please don't isolate science from literacy, because it goes hand in hand. It is the informational text standard. So here on the lesson plan, we ask that you incorporate your science standard as well as your reading informational text standard. Your key academic terms, learning targets, the same as Dr. Dana Williams went over for the ELA lesson planning, your essential questions, and this is an actual lesson plan that I created for 4th grade that can be used as a guide. I added misconceptions in science, and then I still added for each day your 5 E's. So as you see on day 1, you have engaged teachers, and it tells you teachers will begin by doing this. Students will do this. Everything is hyperlinked in this particular plan. And then right here on the right-hand side, you have the ACAP instructional supports. Now, let me tell you, for science, there are only instructional supports for 4th grade. But what the expectation is for 2nd, 3rd, and 5th grade is that you use this lesson plan as a guide to create yours, although you do not have instructional supports, because if I'm second grade, I should still be able to create key academic terms. I should still be able to create learning targets, essential questions. So although you don't have an ACAP instructional support guide for second, third, and fifth, that can still be created. And you can look at the fourth grade one to assist you with creating your lesson plan template. And you can see the alignment from the ACAP where it has the key academic terms. And if you come here to the right, instructional supports, key academic terms, same thing, same alignment. Again, it is hyperlinked in here that this link takes you straight to the science lesson plan template. Okay, so then day 2, then I go to explore. Okay, you have engage, explore, then it tells you teachers will ensure. And if you see here, choral reading activities, what did I do as a self-contained teacher? I incorporated my science into my reading lesson. Does not have to be different or isolated. Then I have, just like you saw in Dr. Dana Williams' lesson plan for ELA, I have my anchor chart before reading, during reading, after reading. Choral reading, this activity is hyperlinked. That can be printed out for students as well. And then 2, I have select a reading informational text story. Well, guess where that takes you to? That takes you to Studies Weekly, Types of Energy. That's your literacy and your science combined together. Before reading, during reading, after reading activities. As well as your tier 1 small group instruction, the steps. Same thing with ELA. You have your tier 2, you have your tier 3. It's all embedded together. The instructional supports are right here on the right hand side. As you can see, this is the instructional support for ELA. So this is not the one for science. So I have reading informational text. That's the first standard that you saw on the first page, where you're referring to details and examples. Again, intertwining science and reading together. Instructional outcomes, guiding questions, just as you saw on the ELA instructional supports and lesson plan. Day 3, we have explain. You have where teachers will show students, you can show a video. I hyperlink the videos in here. Students will draw attention to roller coasters after the video. There's a graphic organizer hyperlink. So I hyperlinked all the activities. And we also did a race strategy for science per the roller coaster activity with that science standard, again, incorporating literacy and science. And then you have your instructional supports where we pulled some of those activities and guiding questions and anchor charts. Day 4, activities, which looks like hands-on activities for students. You have activity 1, activity 2. And so that's why for science, I said 5 to 7 days, because typically it will take that amount of time. By the time you introduce it, you incorporate the literacy and the reading, then you go back doing actual science activities. It's going to take at least 5 to 7 days realistically to do the 5 E's. Day 5, I have evaluate. And here you can see USA test prep. I have the test code for that particular standard for PS1. It's standard specific. 10 questions, and then your intervention and acceleration for teachers, for students, excuse me, for you all to assign to students. So the expectation for teachers moving forward after you have reviewed this PowerPoint presentation on ACAP strategies and resources to improve student achievement, you will receive this presentation. But after you have watched it and then it's emailed to you and you pull it back up, the expectation in the next steps are 2 things. Group A, and make sure you refer to what Sydney Sneed sent out as far as the PD schedule for today for January 3rd. You want to make sure that Group A creates grade level common assessments in USA Test Prep, and I'll explain that in just a few. And then Group B, you're going to develop high quality lesson plans using ACAP resources and strategies and MPS instructional guides. So what this looks like is, if I'm a second grade teacher, I get with my other second grade teachers and we meet collectively and we decide, okay, out of the four of us, if there are 4 teachers on that grade level, then I and another teacher, we're going to work on a common assessment for standard 3.2 in science. And then the other 2 teachers may work on 2 lesson plans, 1 reading and 1 science lesson plan for the standards that are assigned. And this will make more sense to you when we get to the next few slides that Dr. Dana Williams is going to go over. But each school will be assigned a standard per grade level for you to work on. So the expectation is 2 lesson plans and 1 common assessment by January 18th. And again, we'll explain this more in detail. So it's not overwhelming to you, and you're working collaboratively with your grade level on reading and science lesson plans. Because the hope and the vision is that we can create collaboratively a pool of lesson plans per standard, as well as a pool of common assessments per standard that will help you drive your instruction. And it will help you as a teacher. Once we get these things built and we have all these common assessments per standard and we have these lesson plans, then I think it will help everyone as a whole. So this is group A. And then group B, again, you're going to develop the lesson plans. And then Dr. Dana Williams is going to kind of go through that process.
So thank you, Dr. Shanice Williams. For example, what you see here is it's hyperlinked as well. This is the assignment sheet. As you can see, this one is for ELA, the lesson plan development and the assessment creation. So group B, we have assigned the standards to each school and each grade level in each school. So therefore, you have no questions about what am I supposed to do? It is outlined for you. And then group B, it's telling you exactly what question types, item types to select when you create the common assessment, either in USA Test Prep, STAR, Performance Matters. Make sure you select the item types that are listed at the bottom of the page. And we have the same thing for science. You have been assigned, each school has been assigned, each grade level in each school has been assigned a particular standard to create a science lesson plan for. In both English, ELA, and science, you will be using your instructional supports, the ACAP instructional supports, to help create these high quality lesson plans. It is hyperlinked again in this presentation. All you have to do is click on it to get a larger printed version, and you can move forward with your assignments from there. Again, the next steps: meet with your grade level team to discuss the roles and responsibilities of Group A and Group B activities. Create 2, 1 reading and 1 science. Create 2 lesson plans with your grade level team using the instructional supports from ACAP, the item specifications, the lesson plan template that's attached, and create the collaborative lesson and use the collaborative lesson plan template. All this is due by January 18th. 3, create 1 common assessment in USA Test Prep. It should be a standards-based assessment. Make sure it is according to the grade level that you are on, and it's based on the standard you've been assigned. Or, well, Group B will have to create that standard for the grade levels. The grade level chairperson is responsible for uploading the common assessment and both lesson plans. Again, the grade level chairperson is responsible for uploading the common assessment and the lesson plans. Common assessment, you may not be able to print all common assessments. In most of our platforms you can. However, with USA Test Prep, you can put that code on there and we can look it up, or you can print it out. But either way, we do need a copy of, or we need to be able to gain access to your common assessment. And Dr. Shanice Williams has created a folder or Google Drive to upload these items. You will go to your drive. It's titled Elementary Collaborative Lesson Plans and Common Assessments. Find your school, and you will find your grade level. And from there, you will upload your information. At the beginning of this folder, you see the first folder listed says all info and samples. If you have any questions, you can go in there and gain some information or understanding about each of these pieces, so you won't have any confusion. But if that does not clarify anything for you, feel free to contact either me or Dr. Williams, and we can help you further.
And let me clarify too, you have a rubric that shows you the standard that is assigned to your school per grade level. So when you're creating your common assessment, you're going to use that same standard that you were assigned to create that common assessment. So if I'm responsible for creating at Bear Elementary, the 4th grade standard PS1 lesson plan, then whoever is responsible for creating the common assessment will create a common assessment in USA Test Prep for that same standard.
So in here, the last couple of pages of this presentation, we have the directions to access your ACAP resources. As you can see, it is located in your Google Drive. So the first few steps are the same for both science and ELA. You will go to your shared drives, go to Inside MPS and click on Curriculum Instruction. For ELA, you will click on the ELA folder, click on the ACAP Resources, ACAP Instructional Supports, or Item Specifications, whichever folder you choose to select, and then select by your grade level. For science, again, the first 3 steps are the same. Then you will go to Science, Elementary K-5 Science folder, and then the ACAP Item Specs for grade 4. We have also hyperlinked all of these wonderful resources in this presentation as well. So you have multiple locations to gain access to everything we've discussed. It's in the actual presentation itself. We just showed you the steps that you need to take to access the information on the Google Drive, and it is located here on the resource page. So we have the instructional supports, we have the lesson plan template, we have the collaborative planning activities listed. The next page, we have the item specs listed. Everything we've discussed is listed in multiple locations in this particular presentation. If you have any questions, comments, problems, or concerns, feel free to email either me or Dr. Shanice Williams, and we will provide you with assistance.
Thank you all so much. And if you need our help, we are here. We just appreciate everything that you are doing for our students in Montgomery Public Schools. Thank y'all so much, and y'all have a great day.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.